Hello, welcome to another 10-Ton Hammer Talks. We got a pretty good show today set up here. About one of, sorry, just drawing a total blank there. Got a pretty good show set up for talking about the updates to League of Legends. So I'll pass it over to Jeremy while I get things set up and fixed, like his camera for some reason, and we'll get started here.
Alrighty, so yes, soon I will actually be centered in my little box here, rather than you looking mostly at my couch. But yeah, so it's going to be a pretty good show today. Before we get started, I will do my now weekly ritual of letting you guys know, of course, that we are here representing 10-Ton Hammer and 10tonhammer.com. If you like what we do, or even if you think, well, it's okay, that's good enough, check out our stuff on 10-Ton Hammer. Got a lot of good writers there, cover all sorts of different games, obviously League of Legends being one of them, and we're going to talk about that today. But yeah, got a bunch of different stuff, news, guides, features, editorials, all sorts of awesome gaming stuff across the spectrum of genres, so please check out 10tonhammer.com. We do have our forums there as well if you do, kind of participate in various discussions, and the more you go there and have other people go there, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to keep doing this show, and we'd like to keep doing this show, please, so thank you.
Aha, I figured it out. So yeah, I had apparently from another stream when we had more people on, there was another one that was over it, so I figured it out. Got it. Alright, so...
Hey, there I am.
Yes.
All right.
So yeah, as Jeremy was saying, League of Legends is the topic of the show today, and just for you guys who might not be familiar with it, I know there's probably not many people out there, but League of Legends, huge, most popular MOBA in the world, and also kind of leading the charge when it comes to esports. So, but anyways, League of Legends has kind of evolved over the years, whether you've just gotten into it or just heard about it recently, or you've been playing it since like early beta. I got into it right at the end of their open beta and have been playing ever since, so I've experienced kind of the whole evolution of the game as it's gone from launch till now, so it's pretty exciting to see what they do every the beginning of every new season. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And first off, thanks you guys for coming in to participate in the chat. As always, throw us questions as we're talking. We'll answer them as we go. And if we don't get the chance to answer them as we go, we do save a little time at the end of the show to answer any questions. And they can be related to the show, or you can throw in some silly ones every once in a while. We like to have fun too. So yeah.
Sometimes. Alrighty, so the first thing that we're gonna talk about is one of the big things that we're going to be looking at in the 2016 season is there's going to be a brand new champion select system. We're going to talk about it a bit. I'm going to drop a link in the chat as well. I did do a quick intro video just for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like and how it plays out, but we'll talk about it a little bit too. So the most important things here is right now we have Team Builder, which is where you pick your role, you pick your champion, and then it just automatically it'll match you up, and then you'll go against another team. So the big question was, okay, we like the idea of being able to pick your role, knowing what you're going to play, because we've all had experiences, in the pregame lobby, and this applies to any game that has roles, usually a MOBA, but, it's pretty common, mid or feed, or, I only play Riven top, these kinds of things. And if those people don't get their roles, they often will either feed, either intentionally or unintentionally, just because they're uncomfortable, or they'll troll, or they'll just be very upset, these kinds of things. So the question was, how do we get rid of that while still making it a system that works for ranked, which needs to have bans, which needs to have the back and forth drafting mode. It can't just be everyone blind picking their champion. So they actually came up with a really cool solution. So first off, you pick two roles that you want to play, your primary and your secondary. The game will try to get you your primary. If it can't, it'll get you the secondary. It will match you up with people. Then it does have 5 roles. It has top, jungle, mid, support, and bot. They didn't want to put ADC, they just put bot lane. which is fine because things like Mordekaiser isn't an ADC, but is still generally playing bot lane, and it's just to free it up. But usually, most people understand that you'll be a marksman of some variety. So then you queue up. It'll match you with your team, so you know what role you're playing, and then the whole team pre-selects the champion they'd like to play. Doesn't guarantee they will get it, but they pick the champion they'd like to play. So now your entire team, before bans have even started, you already know what everyone's looking to play, which is very cool. So then bans happen, and the way bans work now, instead of the first pick getting all 3 bans, it's the last 3 players on each team that each get 1 ban. So what that does is it now involves all 5 people very heavily in the pick ban process. It's no longer, oh, well, I'm last pick, so I get no say in anything, and I just have to do whatever my team wants. So now the first 2 picks have the benefit of being able to pick early, so they have a better chance of getting the champions they want, but the last 3 are involved because they're the ones that get to ban a champion each. So it really does a much better job of getting everybody involved in the champion select process rather than just alt-tabbing until it's my turn. So again, you pre-select the champion you want, but bans happen, picks happen. So your team is aware of what you want, but you're still drafting in the same way that you do now. Each team bans, and then you pick accordingly. So it's a very different process, but it's one that I think is a lot better. It should eliminate, obviously not all, because you can never eliminate all trolling, but it should eliminate a lot of the trolling and the flaming in the pregame lobby. Just because everyone's aware already of what people want to play, everyone's getting a role that they should be comfortable with. Because in the past, and this is something that I'd like to talk about a little bit with you, Alex, and get your perspective on, but in the past, there's been the idea that, well, if you want to play ranked, you should be able to play all 5 roles, at least somewhat competently. And now, with this new system, once it goes live, well, you don't have to be able to play all 5 roles. If you can play 2 roles competently, you can jump into ranked and you don't have to worry about it. So I think that's very cool, and that's kind of, I think, a good start for a discussion point is, how do you feel about allowing players to be more specialized, in the way that they want to play ranked?
Yeah, sorry, I was just getting some visual set up for people that may not be familiar with it. I wanted to pull something directly off the website for. But yeah, I totally agree. I think having the ability to select your role and get some more of this like game planning set up ahead of time, just kind of, I don't want to say automated, but get something set up where you're enabling players to have a better idea of what the people they're joining into a matchmaking game with into. Because I think the biggest beef I usually have when I'm trying to play, attempt to play a ranked game or something like that is, I don't usually have a group of 5 friends that I can like queue up with that we're gonna go play ranked. So I'm always with some, mixture of pickup group, and I think, you really suffer from, I mean, I know everybody says like, oh, everybody's in their solo duo, so nobody has that full team advantage, but I think some players are more, sorry about that, my microphone was super down. But yeah, some people are more set up to, or better at just like communicating on the fly and getting things up. So enabling the average player to be able to communicate what they want to do quicker before the match even starts is amazing. I really think that the role selection is great. It helps people, do exactly that. And I think the other big benefit of the matchmaking, giving every player that, having the bans, the last 3 picks, giving every player, making feel like their position counts in early game and you don't get shafted is also really important. So I think their matchmaking stuff is good. It's eliminating some of the bad while keeping all the good, I think, or most of the good. So very excited for the new matchmaking, and not just for rank 2, but I think just your average game, your average game, not even non-ranked, will hopefully be much improved by this and help eliminate some of that like plague of toxicity that seems to happen, when people have their expectations aren't met. And I think that that's really what it boils down to. Players get toxic because, well, some are just toxic, but when your expectations are met, you're more likely to be toxic. So having yeah, this should hopefully clear things up for a lot of players, and they'll at least know what to expect out of each other a little bit. So
Yeah, and like as I just want to just kind of further your point there, which is just that it's super important going into Champions League, knowing you're going to get a role that you're comfortable with, you know, because I see people that are, you know, I can do anything except jungle or anything but support. You know, well, now you really don't have to worry about getting those roles. If you really don't want to play them, like, you don't have to. And something that's worth noting, too, is for people that really don't care, fill is an option as well. So if you really don't care what you're going to play, you just want to get into, you know, queue as quickly as possible, you can fill. But I think for a lot of people, you know, and there are times where people will feed, right, and they'll have a really bad game, and it's not because they're intentionally feeding, it's because they got stuck in a role that they weren't ready to play or that they're not comfortable with because they were last pick, and, you know, maybe someone just doesn't know how to be a mid laner. I've seen it, you know. So just getting rid of that, I think, not only does it help the individual because they know they're going to get a role they want, but it helps the team as a whole. You feel better going into your game knowing that no one's getting stuck with a role that they haven't played in the last 2 years, right? So I think that's better for everybody involved in the process. Everybody should feel better knowing that not only do I have a role I'm comfortable with, everyone else on my team should have a role they're comfortable with too, because it's a role that they signed up for going into the Champions League process. So I think that's very cool.
yeah, definitely. I think, you know, for the average player, you know, yeah, when you first start playing the game, maybe you won't have roles that you're comfortable with, but even it's also a good incentive for players just starting out in the game, you know, getting this concept of roles in their head. Like maybe they have no idea, so they just click fill, you know, and then they start learning about what the roles are, and they realize, hey, I need a couple roles I need to learn. So they don't really, you know, I think some players coming in would just, there are some probably that just gravitate towards a particular champion or role, and, you know, that's all they do. But at least, you know, having this shows them, hey, you know, if I want to get into ranked or competitive, you know, I'm going to need to have a better, like a more variable skill set and be able to do more than one thing. So good on all accounts. Yeah, so good stuff. The next big topic that I think is probably one of the major influences or one of the major updates and changes this going into this next season are the marksman changes, and talking about what they want to do as far as bringing in, well, not bringing in, but I'm sure when they bring in new marksmen, it'll play a role. But taking current marksmen and kind of drastically changing them to make them all offer something kind of unique, rather than just being, you know, I'm the person who does damage from a distance that needs protection, and you have a few, you know, different abilities, different flavors, but they're all the same thing. I think they're really trying to make those a lot more dynamic and unique, each marksman. And also, too, coming along the lines of the changes they're making to several of the marksmen, they're also doing some itemization changes to provide some very, I should say, specific target like goals that, you know, marksmen can try and provide for their team, or roles that they can fill, from, you know, being kind of like a structure killer to taking down big champions with a lot of help. There's a lot of different items that they have going, so we'll kind of like touch on a couple of them, but we'll talk about some of the champions too that are going. And first of all, I wanted to touch on Graves first, because he's one of my favorite. I don't play a lot of ADC at all, but when I do, I like to play pretty aggressive ones like Vayne and Graves. So seeing Graves, like when he was first introduced, they kind of made a big deal about you know, being daring, diving in there, you know, and dealing more damage, and that was his skill set and his kit provided that a little bit, but I think the rework they're planning for him kind of increases that a lot more into, you know, the closer you are to somebody, the more burst damage you're going to do. So very cool to see his changes.
Yeah, I will comment, and I will answer BB Cannon's question in the chat, kind of with actually the same preface. So I'm on created a League of Legends ranked team long time ago. Not going to get into all the details of that, but very recently I actually finally got together a stable roster that we're trying to play. When I did that, I actually switched. I used to main mid lane. I've become an ADC main. When did it happen already? I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. So I've been spending a lot of time playing the ADC role recently. So first I will use that to answer Baby Cannon's question. And she asked, do you have concern about people, or even myself, pigeonholing themselves because there's now an easy way out for not playing the role or champ that you exactly want? My answer, am I concerned? No. The reason is I, basically kind of going back to what I was saying before, I would rather know that not only am I playing a role that I'm comfortable with, but I would rather know that my random teammates that who I don't know in real life, are playing roles that they're comfortable with. If I'm just queuing up solo, we'll get to the fact you can queue up with more than two after this. But if I'm playing with random people in a ranked game, or even a normal, if I'm trying to accomplish something and I'm trying to learn about the game, I'd rather know that they're comfortable in their roles. I don't care how well-rounded of a player my random teammates are. I might care about it for myself. If that's something that I personally value, then I'm going to do that either way. If I value being a well-rounded player who knows how to play all roles, then I'm going to do that either way. I'm going to queue up for different roles each time I queue up. I might queue top/jungle one game or ADC/mid another game. If I really want to learn all roles, I can still do that. It doesn't prevent me from doing that. But when I'm playing with random people, I don't care how well-rounded they are. If they're a one-trick pony, I want them on that champion if that's their only champion that they know if they're playing on my team. So in theory, yeah, everyone should be well-rounded. It'd be good for everyone to know the roles, but that's not reality. And in reality, it doesn't really affect me personally. I don't care what these randoms are. I'm probably never going to see them again. So if they're on my team for this one ranked game that I want to win, I'd rather they're comfortable on a role and champion that they know. So whatever they decide to do after that game is on them. But in this game, I want them comfortable.
Yeah,
so that's my answer to that question.
To follow that up, too, for me, as somebody who doesn't participate in a whole lot of ranked or the competitive side just because, I'm out of the loop in strategies and all the crazy itemization that goes on, something like they're doing here with ranked, where they're allowing you to group up with variable sizes of people rather than just solo or duo, and then also this, role selection thing, for somebody like me, that helps because, I may be that one-trick pony like Jeremy is saying. Like, I like to be well-rounded, play ARAMs, and try all the different champions and learn all their skill sets and have a good understanding of all of them. But as far as mastering, there's a few champions that I gravitate towards, and having that ability to kind of select a couple roles and select, and give people the intent of a couple champions I'm going to play really improves the appeal to actually participating in ranked for me. So I think that there's a lot of benefits to what it is doing, even though maybe there are a few negatives, but I don't see them even coming close to outweighing the positives of implementing something like this. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I will. Maybe we can just give a counterpoint, and I will give my counter to that counterpoint real quick, and then we'll jump back on topic here. So that conversely, a person with a laser focus just on one role or one champion could have a weaker knowledge of the other champions they're playing against. Technically, that could be true, but let's say that this random on my team only plays top lane, right? So yeah, they might not know a lot about the other champions, but they're going to know much more about their lane matchups than they will if they're constantly playing around with other roles. So while the game is not only about laning phase, of course, when they're only playing top lane, if they're only playing one or two champions, they're going to be very, very well versed in the matchups for those champions and in that role. So while I agree everybody has to be aware of all champions in the game, in all roles, that has to happen regardless, and there's no way to force people to do that, even if you literally forced someone to say you played X role last game, you can't play it this game. Even if you did that, there's no way to force anybody to be aware of all 130 plus champions in the game. So given that there's no way for me to know what my teammates' knowledge is of the other champions in the game outside of the role that they prefer, and there's no way for me to force them to know it, I'd rather they be comfortable with their role than uncomfortable, because everything else is out of my control, out of their control at that point. So I'd rather they be comfortable. To get back on topic to the marksman, and we'll start with Graves, because I think Graves is probably the single most polarizing marksman rework so far. the initial reaction before people saw him in-game was, that sounds terrible. He's an ADC who has to reload after a few attacks. You know, that seems really bad. His auto attacks are basically skill shots. They only hit the unit directly in front of him, which can make, you know, CSing difficult. You know, how is he going to do this? Whatever. And then people actually saw him in game and said, oh my goodness, that is the most broken thing I've ever seen, because his burst damage is nuts. What's actually crazy about him is that his burst of, you know, the closer you are, the spread will hit the target, is it works on towers. Which means if he gets up to a tower, he can just absolutely demolish that thing within seconds, and it's actually kind of gross. So Graves is really interesting. Also, we've seen some videos of the fact that he can actually jungle, which is, whether that's overall great or not is, you know, I guess a topic for a different discussion. But the fact that he can do it easily is interesting. And yeah, the Epicure in the chat says sounds like a shotgun. Well, that's exactly it. He uses a shotgun, so they wanted to really embrace that and not just have it be a visual thing, but actually have his gameplay work around the fact that, yes, he is using a shotgun. So I think that's very cool. I don't think we have time to go over literally every single marksman, but I will just say the fact that they are making sure that each marksman actually plays differently, that it's not just, what right-click champion do I feel like playing right now, but that each of them have a very different play style is very cool. I will say that as now an ADC main, there is some almost serenity you get from knowing that it almost doesn't matter what champion you play, because if you can play one of them, you can more or less play most of them at least somewhat competently. Because the ADC role right now is just more about, do you know how to farm? Do you know how to position in team fights? If you do, you can probably play pretty much any ADC. And there is some, I guess, peace of mind that comes with that, that knowing that whatever your team needs you to play, you can do it. But for the sake of the long-term health of the game, and for, you know, kind of moving forward and evolving, I think these changes are very good. And it extends to itemization too, because almost every ADC had either one of two build paths, which was Infinity Edge, followed by either Phantom Dancer or Static Shiv, and then Last Whisper / Bloodthirster, depending on how much armor they were building. And that was it. Or you had like the Blade of the Rune King builders, you know, Vayne, Twitch, Callisto, Blade of the Rune King, Renon's Hurricane. So it was really, the itemization paths were very, very set, and almost every AD carry used the exact same path. So now the itemization is going to get a lot more specific as well. You know, even the starting item, there's going to be Doran's Blade versus Cull. You know, Doran's Blade if you need a little bit more survivability in the lane, and Cull if you feel like you're really protected and you can get a little bit extra gold income, which is very cool. And then in the mid to late game, the itemization is going to, you know, not just be, you know, how many crits can I get, although that might be part of it, or it might be, do I need to be a tank buster, you know, do I need to get through crowd control, and they're just really improving the itemization choices a lot. So playing a marksman is going to feel a lot more rewarding, I think, in the Season 6 than it does right now. And
also, too, touching generally on marksman, just for esports related and viewing and all that, for spectating, I think the changes to marksman are a move in that direction, because when you're, you know, when you watch a match of professional gamers playing League of Legends, you know, seeing the way each specific team member plays, you know, a champion is always interesting, and seeing, you know, you can tell, you know, people get hyped when a certain, you know, professional gamer picks one of their main champions that they really uniquely know how to use. And when you look at an ADC, there's not as much excitement there because they do operate very similarly. But I think now with these changes, you know, even when you're observing games, you're going to get to see, you know, some of the professional gamers that have really mastered these different ADCs, you know, gravitating towards a favorite and being able to pull off some really, like, awesome, some awesome moves and stuff in game. So that'll be cool to see. I think it'll make that element of the game a little bit more exciting for team fights and ganking and all that, for where ADCs are coming into play. So,
yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you. I mean, I'll just give a quick example. One of my favorite ADCs right now to play is Callista, partially because she's very strong, but also partially because she's one of the only ADCs that does play actually very differently than her other marksman counterparts. So you really do feel like you're playing a different champion rather than, not as much. So I think it speaks to that. The more variety there is, the more the more rewarding it'll feel to play it. And I agree with you. As a viewer, as a spectator of the esports scene, it should make that more entertaining as well.
Yeah, one thing too before we leave the marksman stuff, I wanted to talk about the items. One thing I think that's interesting they're doing, and I hope they make this change somewhere in the user interface, is trying to show different items do different things other than just having a list of what they do, but talking about damage items and then multipliers, simplifying the categories when you're like searching for stuff, items in the shop. I think will really help new players kind of get a grasp for which items to buy, having like one of each of the damage, multiplier, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the change to the Phantom Dancer is really interesting because it used to always be about move speed, critical strike, obviously attack speed in there too, but now they're kind of changing it to where it creates this dueling effect, where when you're attacking a specific champion, that champion is going to be dealing less damage to you, and it grants you the ability to pass through units to go towards a nearby champion. So I think that's a really intriguing benefit, and I'm excited to see how they're taking a lot of these weapons, and instead of just giving you all these passive stat gains or bonuses and stuff, they're having them do unique things so that you can do unique things on the battlefield. And I thought Phantom Dancer was kind of a great example in this update of what the kind of things they're doing with that. So, but yeah, marksman stuff aside, cool stuff there. Looking forward to what they're doing and making them a more unique aspect to the environment.
Yeah, so the next big thing, and I'll certainly want your input as someone who doesn't play a lot of ranked, and I'll give mine, kind of on the flip side spectrum, someone who does play a lot of ranked, is they're making a lot of changes to the ranked experience, most of which I think are just straight improvements, but the first one we're going to talk about is some that's generated a lot of controversy. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to say why it's generated controversy, and then I'm curious to hear your opinion, Alex, and anyone in chat as well. So one of the big things is what they're calling dynamic groups. So until now, to queue up for ranked play, you had three options. You could do ranked team play, which is a full group of 5 versus a full group of 5 under a team name. Or there was what they called solo queue, which is where you can either queue up by yourself or with one partner. Of course, when queuing up with a partner, they can only be one tier ahead of you. So if I'm in silver, I can't queue up with somebody in platinum or in diamond to try to have them carry me. So there has to be close, in ranking, so that you can't try to cheat the system. So that's staying. You still can't queue up with someone more than one tier ahead of you. But what they're doing now is that you can queue up with any number of people for ranked play. So there are still ranked teams, that's not changing, but it's no longer solo queue. It's not just 1 or 2. You can queue up still by yourself or with 2. You can also queue up with 3 or even 4 people for ranked play. This is a system that had been used until very recently in Heroes of the Storm. A lot of people didn't like it, and Heroes of the Storm actually just recently changed to League's current system of you can only do solo or duo, or team 5s. And so there's a lot of controversy around this. There's people saying that it can be abused and this and that. Before we get the full discussion started on that topic, I will say, just as a disclaimer, however many people you're queued up with, if you're queued up as 3 or 4, they say about 95% of the time, a group of the same size should be on the other team as well. So it shouldn't be like, well, we have a pre-made of 4 on our team, but the other group is just 5 individuals, so we should stop them. That shouldn't happen. But again, there are people worried that just having that many people is a way to abuse the system. There's a lot of negativity that I've seen towards the system. And again, I find it abusive that it was only recently Heroes of the Storm got rid of that system. Just for comparison's sake, I will say Dota does something in between, where I believe it's you can queue up as either 1, 2, or 3, or there's team 5s. And I think the idea there was to prevent the 4-man gang up on one person on the team. So that, if we have a pre-made group of 4, we can try to bully that one person and do whatever we want. So Dota is kind of in between those two systems. So, thoughts? Go.
Yeah, I like the changes because, if I do happen to have a couple friends on that I want to play with, it's not that situation where you're like, oh, well, there's 3 of us, so we're not going to play ranked today, or, we'll have to do Twisted Treeline or something. You can actually play whatever you want with whoever you want. You can play ranked or not. So I like that. It makes it, you don't have any hard choices at that point. It's just what do you want to do, and now we can do it. So I like that. And then as far as what you were saying as, a system abuse and stuff like that, I can see how, you'll get the hardcore elite saying, all right, we're going to go in pre-made groups of 4 because there's a 5% chance we're going to get a bunch of singles and we'll have an advantage. So I could see that, but I think the benefits, again, outweigh the negatives, but there are definitely, it's with everything in life, period. Everything can be abused or used, and I'm sure that there will be some people who find ways to kind of edge the system and abuse it a little bit, but it's just, it's not a big enough worry, I don't think, to counteract all the benefits of it, which is, I think, more people participating in ranked gameplay was what it really boils down to.
Right, and I think that's the goal. The counter argument is that team play, like ranked team 5s, is where you show your proficiency as a team, and then in solo queue is supposed to be more about individual mastery. But the idea is that Riot's trying to say, well, no, it's not. This is a team game, whether you like it or not. So play as a team because it is a team game. And especially now that the game is much less about individual carries as it used to be, say, a year or 2 ago. It is much more about team play. I think it makes sense. I will say that maybe considering the Dota model of not allowing 4, but up to 3 might work, just because there are going to be some groups of 4 that will try to bully, the one random on their team. So even if the other team also has 4 and 1, so it's technically balanced, if one team's group of 4 is much more toxic and unwilling to work with their 1, it's still a pretty significant disadvantage. So I would say maybe consider that system, but overall, I agree that as the game has become more and more about team play, it does make sense to allow maybe a slightly larger group to participate in ranked. I will say that there are bonuses for playing in ranked. You're going to get bonus IP, so for those who are still working on unlocking champions or runes or whatever, that can be cool. The next thing, which we're not going to talk about for long, just going to kind of mention it, is matchmaking at the high end of the ladder, which is not relevant for most of us who aren't there, but for those who are high up on the ladder, high diamond, master, challenger, they're optimizing matchmaking so that there aren't 30-minute queue times. The matchmaking should still be the same in the end. They're not going to suddenly start putting challenger players with low diamond or something, but unless or plat or something, unless their MMR matches up. But yeah, it should just make it so that when people want, when pros want to stream, I guess they don't have to find games that they can play for 30 minutes in queue, just to keep the stream entertained. So that should be good. The thing that I'm very excited about for the ranked play change is what they're calling promo helper. And I know this certainly would have helped me this season if it had been in place, but it'll be good for next season. Lower than Gold 1. If you lose your promo series, and for those who don't know, just real quick base, within each tier, bronze, silver, gold, there's 5 divisions. To get to the next division, say from Gold 4 to Gold 3, you have to win 2 out of your next 3 games. They call it your promotional series. So if you lose that series, right now you just lose LP, you have to get back to the series, and you have to try again. What they're going to do now is if you lose a promotional series, the next time you enter that series, you'll start with at least 1 win. And they say at least 1, which means possibly you could just skip it. Or you'll get 1 win to start off, so now you only have to win 1 out of your next 2, rather than 2 out of your next 3. And when you go, say, from silver 5 or silver 1 to try to get to gold 5, it's a best of 5. So maybe you'll get 2 wins to start. So you actually only have to win 1 out of your next 3 games, which would be very, very helpful. They say they're doing it to help alleviate promo anxiety, which is the thing, because when you're just playing, I just lost some, LP, it's just 1 game, whatever. But when it's in your promos and you're trying to get to that next division, that next tier, there is a little bit of anxiety that can go with it, knowing that, well, all of a sudden, I better, win 2 out of my next 3 games, or else it's not happening. So giving a little bit of help to that, giving a free win to you if you've already failed that series once, well, now you have a head start the next time you do it, I think is very, very cool, and I think it'll help a lot of players not feel so anxious about their promos, which is very good.
Yeah, I like that. I like that change as well. So another thing I wanted to kind of hit on, that was kind of a big and interesting thing to me, just because I'm still like trying to wrap my head around what it exactly is the concept of champion mastery and crafting. Because I've been playing I haven't played competitively in a long time, so I've been playing, just tinking around in ARAMs and Dominion games and things like that. And I didn't know that champion mastery was like a thing. So I'm sure it's probably been here like all season, and I wasn't aware of it. But yeah, so champion mastery, they're kind of taking this thing that they've had going a step further and adding crafting to it. So I'm actually totally going to defer to Jeremy on this, because I have like no idea what this is going to be about. It sounds a little bit complex, but maybe it's not. So, but yeah, it sounds really interesting, because it looks like it's a way that players like me can, like get, improve the speed in which they're unlocking things, and stuff like that. So.
Right. So to give a quick overview, because it does seem a little bit complicated, I'm sure once it's actually in the game and we see it in action, it won't be as complex. And we'll say, all right, it's actually fairly simple. But basically what it's coming down to is after you play the game, you have potential for loot to randomly drop, almost like, in an RPG. So you'll have the chance to randomly pick up what they call keys or key fragments. Fragments can be combined into keys, and you can get mastery chests, and keys will unlock the chest. So it gives you random loot items, which can be, they say you can be 7-day rentals, or you can permanently unlock a champion or a skin. And your mastery chest will be combined to your post-game grade. So for those who have been playing, the mastery system, the better you do in game, and there's several different factors. It's not just your KDA, but there's several different factors that go into determining your score after the game. But it will be tied to that. So they're still working on figuring out exactly how many chests they're going to give out over the year through that. They say they don't want it to be a grind, so you don't want it to feel like, well, I have to play 1,000 games to get this chest. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like, you get one after every single game. Again, it is somewhat randomized, but it does give you an opportunity to pick up stuff for free through that. And then the crafting system, basically you can take something that you unlocked through that and combine, they say 3 of them, any permanent or rental item, into a different permanent item of the same type, either skin or champion. So like, if I'm unlocking skins that I don't really care about, I can take 3 of those, combine them, and make a new one. So basically it's giving players a way to unlock stuff just through playing the game, stuff that before you could only get through paying money, like skins. Now you have a way of unlocking it through just playing the game. I mean, obviously it's not should be play one game, unlock a skin, because then Riot wouldn't make any money and League of Legends would die, so that's probably not great. But you will be able to do that, and it's something that players have been talking about for a long time. And again, I'll go back to Heroes of the Storm, because it's a system that a lot of players there have had, that if you play enough games on a hero in Heroes of the Storm, you do unlock a special skin for it. Now, it's not going to be a special skin just for Mastery for League, but you do have the opportunity to unlock skins just through playing the game, which is very cool, and does, I guess, encourage people to play the game and feel like you can actually get stuff without having, even cosmetic things, without having to pay for them, which is nice.
Yeah, for me, that's kind of a big thing because I think probably the first two or 3 years I played League of Legends, I spent a ridiculous amount of money on the game, well over $200 probably between skins and boosts and rune page, all that stuff. So yeah. So now I play a lot for free because I feel like I've contributed a lot to the game. So I'm taking a couple years off and playing for free. So the ability to actually get skins for new champions or new skins for old champions that I have is really intriguing to me without having to pay money. I think that's kind of cool. I'm sure it's going to be very, like, it's pretty rare when you'll get a permanent one, but even just having like a rental that you just get for free, you know, that's pretty cool. So looking forward to that element.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, thanks for kind of giving the down low on that. I kind of had an idea of what it was supposed to, like what it was saying, but since I didn't have any experience with the champion mastery to begin with, I was like, what is this going to be? So it sounds like it'll be pretty cool, and like you said, I think once it actually is in the game client, it's going to be a lot more intuitive, and it's going to be way simpler than it might come across on their little website kind of overview thing of it. So but anyways, the last section that we were going to hit on here is basically well, it's kind of twofold, but there's a lot of group features coming, which, you know, I think should hopefully help improve the social experience. They're going to be adding, basically, I kind of view it as like guilds. If you're familiar with MMORPGs, it's basically a guild. You've got a group of individuals, you know, that's player organized, and it can be like, you can be rallying around whatever it is you want to rally around. It could be anything from, you know, 10 friends that want to have their elite, you know, their elite insider group to, you know, 50 people that have their, you know, that's just a giant guild, and they want to, you know, be related surrounding on a cause. Maybe it's everybody who plays it X university or something like that. You know, just you can have all kind, and also too, on that note, I should mention that you can be a part of multiple of these larger groups, and with also you can have your a tag for them showing in game, which I think is always really cool. You know, you get to identify with somebody, and they say you'll be able to toggle what's showing if you're a part of multiple groups. So I think that's very cool. I think it is something that the community's really needed for a long time, because I think if there's any negative thing that anybody can say about League of Legends, it's, you know, the community can at times be like toxic and totally compartmentalized. So I think, I mean, not compartmentalized, but like just totally scatter. And I think this will create a way for people to start like organizing into groups, recognizable groups in the community. So I think it'll be good for helping establish social ties. And, you know, when you're wearing a tag for a certain group out there in game, and all of a sudden you're being, you know, maybe you're less likely to be toxic because you're, you know, you don't want any ramifications of, you know, being removed from that group or something like that. So there's, you know, there's a lot of good things that can come out of it too. Obviously, people can still, you know, there's probably still ways people can think of to abuse it, but I think that there's very few with this, and I think it's going to be really beneficial to creating better social ties, creating a better social environment, and probably eliminating at least some of the toxicity, which, you know, any elimination of that, even if minuscule, is great. So
yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out too that with they call them clubs. With it, it's there's a persistent chat room for everybody that you can just join whenever you log in. It doesn't go away, so it really does create a, you know, consistent community with it. The other thing that I think is very cool, they're doing this thing called parties, which isn't actually what I really want to talk about because it just seems pretty. Basically what it is when you're in a party, there's a group chat that will persist through games, so you don't have to regroup and reopen a chat. It'll stay throughout games. When you log out, you'll leave it, so it's not quite the same as clubs, but you get a party chat that persists through games, which is nice. I think the one thing that I think is very, very good, which has been around through third party, League of Legends is finally launching their own mobile chat app.
One thing I wanted to just jump in right before you get into that, the one good note for as far as the party system goes, If you're familiar with Smite, for people out there familiar with Smite, the ability to be in a group and continually like play again with the same people, and actually popping out of the game lobby and staying in a persistent party and continuing to queue in together to a game is nice. You don't have to like re-invite everybody and do all that stuff. So that's probably the one key feature to the party system. But yeah, go ahead, keep going on the League Friends app.
Yeah, so I mean, part of the thing is that a lot of people, they're not real life friends; they're just friends you have on League of Legends. So maybe you don't, have their phone number, or they're not on your Facebook or whatever, but you talk to them through League. So there's been, as I said, third-party apps to let you talk to people on your friends list, just through League. But personally, I never because you have to log in. I never loved the idea of putting in my username and password to a third-party app. Just never seemed that appealing to me. I mean, even if they're well rated and they've never done anything wrong, there's nothing that prevents them from doing something wrong in the future. I never liked that idea, so I haven't used it. So the idea of having an actual official mobile app that's run by Riot Games, that feels much better to me. And from the looks of it, it looks like it's going to be a very good interface, and just being able to connect with your friends. Instead of maybe you don't have their phone number, they're not on your Facebook or whatever. Being able to do that from mobile is a very good idea, and I'm glad that there's going to be an official Riot app rather than having to trust some third party who says, no, I swear I won't use your password for anything bad. So I really like that that's going to be implemented.
Yeah, I totally agree. You probably pointed out the most important aspect of it all, which is, it's straight from Riot. You can feel safe about participating. But other than that, very important aspect of it, of account security is, it's going to be cool to actually, be able to talk with friends on League or see who's on, because a lot of times, I don't know if I'm the only one who has this problem, but I have a ton of games on my computer, and because Steam is a kind of a great platform. A lot of things are launched through there. So when you're on Steam, you can see friends on Steam. What I don't think of a lot of times is to log into my League of Legends client, see who's on, see who's playing there. So it'll be a great way to have, maybe they'll have notifications or something, or you can just have it up and running. I'm sure there's probably going to be like a Windows app for it too. Oh yeah, that's right. They said oh wait, no, that's actually coming up. I guess it'll lead us right into the kind of the next topic, but the Friends app will be able to let you know who's online and let you chat. But another thing too that's coming up, they're talking about rebuilding the back end for League of Legends, because the client has been around since gosh, I don't know when, 2007, 8
launched really,
9 actually. So yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, like 6 years. It's been operating on the same back-end tech. They've been doing a ton of stuff with it. I'm actually surprised with how far they've stretched. The current client looks so crisp and nice, and they're still operating on this crazy back-end tech. So they want to basically rebuild the client. So they're going to be starting an alpha for that in 2016 and opening it up on a very limited basis, probably even more limited than PvE if you guys are familiar with the public beta. The alpha is going to be limited, but one of the awesome features of the alpha is your friends list, and this offline client will be totally separate from the game client, or standalone kind of, so you can have it open without having the actual full game open and running. And then also, yeah, I think it'll be cool, because what they're basically, not to get totally tongue-tied here, which I keep like stumbling on my words, but the coolest part about it is they'll be rebuilding it, knowing now what they, how League of Legends has evolved over the past 6 years, and they know they have a much better idea of the different innovations they want to do going forward, and they know how many things they've changed already with crazy champion kits and the different world rules and operants that they're manipulating with each unique champion's kit. So they're going to rebuild. They want to rebuild the client so that they can better facilitate that, especially for future champions, and also graphically to probably make it run a lot faster with much better appearance. So
yeah,
a lot of good things, but obviously it's going to be an experimental thing. Whoever is participating in it, it will have all the same issues that any other alpha does. You know, it'll be buggy, it'll be, you know, have a bunch of issues. So definitely not for the average player, but I'm pretty interested for somebody like myself who doesn't play a lot competitively. You know, I just play for fun a lot. So if I can help them test out an alpha client, you know, and deal with a few bugs while I just, you know, dink around in an ARAM, or, well, I'm sure it'll just have Summoner's Rift, but if I can do that.
I'm going to jump in real quick just
Go
to
ahead.
clear up any confusion that you might be causing. What they're talking about is not the in-game stuff. It's the out-of-game client, the one that's currently running off of Adobe Air, which is an awful, awful client. So the in-game is, as far as I know, not changing. This is all for the out-of-game stuff, both pre-game and post-game, and how you interact with everything there. So this client is, let's be honest, terrible. And if you want to, you know, point out one of the worst things about the actual game of League of Legends, it is the Adobe Air client. And it has caused a lot of issues over the years. So they are completely abandoning it. They're building an entirely new client, which is fantastic. So this will take you. This is basically everything except for actual gameplay. So this is outside a game, you know, checking your runes and masteries, going to the store, interacting with your friends, and all that. This does include champion select. That is included in the new client build. So everything, and post game as well, when you see your mastery score, when they're going to do these things, you know, with the crafting and giving you the keys and whatever, that is included. It's basically everything that is not actual gameplay is part of this new client, and it's been something that's needed for a long, long time. We've seen, you know, multiple fan-made, you know, not full clients obviously, but, you know, concepts and whatever that have looked really good. So they are going to be completely rebuilding it. It's something that's been sorely needed for a long time, and it should make the entire League of Legends experience a lot better.
I am glad that you clarified that, because for some reason I thought it was like wholesale, like, you know, the out-of-game client and the in-game as well. Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, clearing that up.
But yeah, the point is, overall, it's something that we've needed for a long time, and it should make everything a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably been, like, aside from community issues, I think dealing with, I've heard from a lot of people who don't play League of Legends, you know, the way that the patcher is and the out-of-game client really bothers a lot of people the way it works. I know with me, like, I have a different firewall that I use, like a special firewall. I have to literally disable it and turn on Windows Defender when I'm playing League of Legends, only for that game, because it specifically won't let me authorize it, because it always creates a new version of itself, and it pisses off my firewall to no end. So I hope that when they do that, it fixes that, because that's probably the most annoying thing for me personally. But yeah, very needed. Very much looking forward to. I don't see any other extra questions in the chat here, and we are getting close to our wrapping up time. But before we really, like, go into closeout and everything, you know, there's a ton of updates here. We barely scratched the surface. The official website has, like, an actual really in-depth season preview that you can go to. I'll actually go to the main homepage and drop that link in the chat. But yeah, the main season update page is really well done, and it gives a great overview of what's happening at the game. So, yeah, we both post it. So yeah, that's there it is in the chat. I'll also leave a link for that in the description. But yeah, we are really excited about this. It's gotten me to play more League of Legends again, just kind of ramping up for the changes. So I'm pretty excited for that. But anyways, yeah, if you can't think of anything else, Jeremy, anything you really wanted to hit on before we take off today?
I think we covered pretty much all the points that I was pretty excited about. I think that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we want to thank you guys a lot. I know Jeremy mentioned it earlier, but if you guys aren't aware, we are affiliated with 10 Ton Hammer, this show. We do, on behalf of, they let us do it to talk about the game topics we like and enjoy, and communicate with the audience and interact. So if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the live stream sometime. And everybody, YouTube, Twitch, whatever you're watching on, check out 10 Ton Hammer. We do a lot of great written content there. A lot of cool stuff happening currently there. Jeremy's the League of Legends maestro there, covering everything with the tournaments, esports, and as well as just giving insight on different things happening with the game client. So you can check out all his content there. And for me, I've got a lot of cool exclusives of some upcoming MMORPGs to check out too. So you guys can see all that stuff there. Anyways, thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up. We will be live again, same time next week at 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
3 p.m. Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, every Friday. So thank you guys. Appreciate you showing up, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.